Penguin Random House Audio presents The Boys of Riverside, a deaf football team and a quest for glory. This is the author, Thomas Fuller. To Jocelyn, Harrison, and Sophie, for your love and patience as I rumbled off to Riverside. Prologue. Sometimes a journey begins with an email. This one was a routine message sent to journalists from the California Department of Education. A note applauding the undefeated season of a deaf high school football team in Riverside, east of Los Angeles. The deaf school was founded a few years after World War II, but in 7 decades, none of its sports teams had ever made it to a championship, let alone prevailed in one. Now, the California School for the Deaf Riverside was in the playoffs. The email concluded with a plea for assistance. Please help the school upgrade their facilities and write a check with bleachers on the memo line. My job for the New York Times was San Francisco bureau chief. That meant covering wildfires and homelessness, deaths of despair on the streets of California cities, and mass shootings. These topics are in line with the arc of my 3 decades in journalism, most of which have been spent abroad for the Times, writing about natural disasters, military coups, uprisings, and financial crises. It was heavy stuff, both the stories and the reporting. I had interviewed a rogue general in Thailand who was killed by a sniper as I was asking him a question. The bullet had whizzed over my head. I had counted bodies floating down a river after a terrible cyclone in Myanmar. Then along came this group of high school kids and their quest for a championship. Something about the Riverside Cubs pulled me in like metal to a magnet. Riverside was 7 hours away from my home in the East Bay of San Francisco. I got into my car and barreled down the 8-lane California freeways, arriving just in time to meet with the players and to watch them crush their opponents in the second round of the playoffs. I interviewed the coach of the losing team, and he told me he had never competed against a squad that communicated so fluidly and so well. Reporting this story introduced me to the world of 8-man football, a division for smaller schools in California that have trouble fielding 11-player teams. The California School for the Deaf Riverside had just 51 boys in its regular high school academic programs. Nearly half of them were on the football team. I came to appreciate the 8-man game. It was fast, hard-hitting, and a little more down in the dirt than 11-man ball. Sometimes literally. At Trona High School, in a mining community in the Mojave Desert, the team plays their games on sand. The field is known as the Pit, part of the desolate landscape that envelops the town on the edge of Death Valley. The 8-man division includes schools on the endless farms and ranch lands of the Central Valley, on Indian reservations, and perched high in mountain passes. There's even an 8-man team on Santa Catalina Island, an hour's ferry ride into the blue-green waters of the Pacific Ocean, where home field advantage comes with the hope that the opposing team gets woozy on the boat ride over. Smaller and far-flung does not mean less athletic. Big names have come out of California's 8-man football programs, including Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills quarterback, who played for Firebaugh High School in a farming town in the Central Valley. The 1994 Heisman Trophy winner, Rashaan Salaam, played on an 8-man team in San Diego. In reporting the book, I came to see the Cubs as a flesh-and-blood realization of the American dream. Coaches and players had backgrounds that spanned the globe. Their parents were from Mexico, Romania, El Salvador, Ethiopia. The team's defensive coordinator, Kaveh Angorani, was born in Iran to a mother who was deeply distraught when she discovered her son was deaf. She sent Kaveh to the United States, where he thrived in the deaf community and took up this curious game with an oblong ball. Football would become a central part of Kaveh's new American identity, one that he embraced so enthusiastically that his idea of retirement was to buy a Harley Davidson and ride into the California desert. I marveled at the challenges that some of the players faced off the field. Philip Castaneda, a lightning-fast running back, was homeless and slept in his father's car in a Target parking lot across from the school. His love of football motivated him to get up every morning, wash his face in the Target bathroom, and go to class. The article I wrote about the Cubs for the Times got the school a lot of attention and put intense pressure on the team to win. I decided to put my career on hold, give up my position as San Francisco bureau chief, and follow the team for an entire season. It was a dream journey and a window into deaf culture, a term that many deaf people capitalize because it encompasses an entire class of people and their way of life. I was honored that the players, coaches, and administrators at the school trusted me, someone with little prior knowledge about deafness, to tell their story. I interviewed historians and linguists, psychologists, and a neurosurgeon, all of whom had contributed to the incredible leaps in knowledge about the complex structure of sign language and how the human brain adapts itself to deafness by enhancing other senses. The sports program at the California School for the Deaf had endured indignities for years. Visiting teams would sometimes talk about how it would be embarrassing to lose to a deaf team. During their many years with a losing record, the football team had the sinking feeling that their opponents came expecting an easy win. Many of the talented athletes on the Cubs had previously played football in weekend leagues with hearing people, and they had come away feeling lonely and alienated, unable to take part in huddles or team meetings. At Riverside, they came together as a squad with a sense of mission, an all-deaf team and coaching staff. They were underdogs, but they had something immeasurable. They had a brotherhood. As I stood on the sidelines watching the team practice day after day, I witnessed a passion for the game of football. I was inspired by the players and their relentless pursuit of that championship ring. That email, which came as the pandemic was raging across a bitterly divided United States, led me to realize that this team's journey, a tale of belonging and excellence, was the story I wanted to write. It felt like a salve at a time of such turmoil in the country. More than 100 high schools in California play 8-man ball, and only 2 of them are deaf schools. The Cubs were determined to show the world that deafness was no impediment to sporting glory. On the contrary, they wanted to prove that being deaf on the gridiron gave them an edge. Chapter 1. Philip. The story begins before the reporters and the television correspondents flock to interview the team, before the offers from movie producers, before the National Football League invited the captains to participate in the Super Bowl coin toss, before success. The story begins in the late summer of 2021, just as California, the nation, and the world were emerging from the worst of the coronavirus pandemic. It begins with a newcomer to the school, Philip Castaneda, in the parking lot where he slept. Philip had a morning ritual. He would scamper out of his father's Nissan Sentra, get his clothes from a suitcase in the trunk of the car, and then slide back into the car to get dressed for the day. He had to wait until 8 a.m., when Target opened its doors, to slip into the entrance, hang a left, and head for the bathroom. The back seat of his father's compact car was his bedroom, and if he looked out the car's windows, he could see, across 4 lanes of traffic, the football field where he hoped to shine. Football was his first love. He had played on various teams when he was younger, and despite his short stature and slight frame, he had impressed coaches with his speed and his toughness. Now he planned on displaying his talents across the street, on the varsity football team of the California School for the Deaf in Riverside, California. Philip's father, Jude Ward Castaneda, had driven to Riverside with the express purpose of giving his son a place to sleep.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?